Hey everyone, welcome back to the Craft Parenting Podcast, the podcast about two Cincinnati craft beer lovers with a parenting problem. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Joe Ludwig, and with me is my lovely wife and co-host, Caroline. How's it going, Caroline?
The sickness has passed through our house and gone to your mom's house, so we're better. We're much, much better.
We are better, yes, but we don't have a babysitter tomorrow.
We do. I secured a babysitter for tomorrow, so we can go to work.
All right,
That's the important thing.
I don't think she is exactly happy about it, but we do have a babysitter. You're correct. So we are back. This is episode 95, so I think we're doing like a countdown to 100.
Oh, snap.
Like we're old.
And Lily might actually be able to start helping out with this countdown because she's getting much, much better at
going
counting.
Backwards?
Yeah.
She can go backwards. Anyway, we have a special guest with us today, Zach Holley. You've been on the show before, so welcome back to the podcast. Can you tell people a little bit about who you are and about you?
Sure. Sure. So obviously you introduced me as Zach Holley. This is my second time coming on your guys' show. I loved doing it the first time. I myself am a parent, so I like the show because it deals with craft beer and being a parent. So that's up my alley as well. But a little bit about myself. I started this group called 513 Craft Brew. It's on Facebook. It's a private group. I started it, I feel like it's almost 2 years now. Time's flown by a lot, especially after having a kid. And my daughter just turned 1. So that also is like, whoa, all this stuff just keeps on happening. And but anyway, I run this group and I started it with a few people that I knew close to me. And then it kind of extended from there. And then I have a couple other people that I've added, Elijah Moreland and then Tom Grant, and then Blake Longfellow, which is he was kind of like a last. He was introduced a little later on, but he also is from Dayton, and he found out through the Gnarly Gnome, which you guys know about me and the group, and it's just expanded so much. And so basically, it's a group that's rooted out of Cincinnati. We talk about a lot of Cincinnati beers. But I think the unique thing about it is just because it's rooted in Cincinnati is we don't only just talk about Cincinnati beers, that we have a lot of people from different states that I've added through Instagram, which is also another great platform that I use for my group, which is I think it's 513 Craft Brew 2.0 it's something like that. It's a username for my Instagram. And so I started adding people from different states, other people from different countries. I've been adding a lot of brewers, people from other breweries. And so it's kind of expanded into like certain brewers will add their name for example, I don't know, Drecker is one of the people that I know that's out of state. And then so one of the head brewers put himself in the group, even though they're not very they don't talk a lot or anything like that. They still view stuff, like stuff. And then of course we got people out in Dayton. I like to always give a shout out to Elmatic and Mike out there, who is also a part of the group. Basically, this group is just for everyone and anyone who loves craft beer. You don't have to live in Cincinnati. You can live in any other places, but it's just kind of a new platform for where I don't tolerate bullying. So there's some other groups that are created for craft beer where people would talk bad about another person, or like, oh, you're drinking a blah blah, or you're doing this. If it wasn't craft beer, they'd just give them a bunch of crap, and that's not what I'm about. I'm about hey, it's about all one thing, and that's either craft beer or maybe sometimes the occasional mainstream beer, and getting people together and socializing. And so this group is made a lot of friends for me within the craft beer community, which makes me really happy because at first I was just a guy getting into craft beer just because friends loved it and stuff. But now I'm meeting head brewers and stuff, and they're coming to me and saying, hey, we love what you do, and kind of almost an influencer or whatnot. The guys out of Esoteric had contacted me before, oh, hey, we got new brew. Anytime we got new beer that comes out, we want you to come out and try it, that kind of thing. So basically, I'm the person who started this Facebook group. And then I've made friends out of it, and then it keeps extending and making new friends each day. And podcast has been a thing too, is I'm making friends through the podcast world. And it's just all one platform. Basically, I focus mainly on Facebook, but I also talk about Instagram as well. But it's just, it's all there. And I just run this group. I'm the head runner of this group, an administrator, and then I've made Elijah Moreland my second runner up for whenever I don't get a chance to get to see everything. And so we just pretty much talk about craft beer, sports, a lot of local Cincinnati stuff, a lot of home brewing stuff. I mean, it's pretty much anything and everything except for politics and the occasional bull crap that people like to throw out there, which is bullying, like I said, and I don't tolerate that, and I don't tolerate politics, but the occasional sports stuff is cool too, and then craft beer. So,
that's
sorry,
awesome.
that was an extensive. No problem. Yeah, and then like I said, I love your guys' podcast, so which I need to support you guys more in my Facebook group, because I've been busy doing it for other friends who are just starting theirs, and I'm like, man, I gotta say something about your guys' podcast. I always gotta say something about Gnarly Gnome and all this other stuff. So
we appreciate your support. We appreciate everyone's support. Obviously, we're just two people who have microphones,
and small children that do interesting things sometimes.
So yeah, we appreciate your support.
No problem.
You're definitely not obligated to support or share our podcast. But we appreciate
the checks in the mail, Zach. Don't listen to it.
No. You don't even have to send me checks. Just invite me to one of your get-togethers, and we can share a beer together. I'll bring something nice. You guys have something nice. We'll kind of share stuff, and then we'll get Joe into some more pumpkin beers, since he doesn't do that very often, or the big heavy stouts.
Well, I think we still have some pumpkin beer. So
yeah.
I
just had one the other day.
That episode, actually.
Yes, that was from another episode. I mean, and now since I've last talked to you guys, I've even acquired something called Utopias, which is Sam Adams, which is, I guess, it's in that realm of craft beer, but it's that $300 to $600 bottle that I got from my mother-in-law for. It was a gift from my mother-in-law, which is crazy because she has a client. She does taxes for people, and she had a client who works at Sam Adams here in Cincinnati. And they were able to acquire a bottle that they don't drink, and I don't even know if he got it like super cheap or she had to buy it. She didn't say much, and I'm sure it wasn't that much. I'm sure she got it for like way less than what it's worth, but it was one of those like, oh shoot, this is awesome, I got this as a gift, versus like, I think she's like, oh, I usually get you a card with a gift card. I was like, this is fine, Utopia is fine, and I shared it already. And she knows nothing about craft beer, so.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I will always accept a Utopias bottle full of Utopias beer in lieu of gift cards or...
For the record.
Yeah, physical.
Just putting it
just for the record, throwing it out there. If you're wondering what to give me for Easter, I am a size bottle of unopened Utopias.
Or you guys can go to your website. What is that called? Buy Me a Coffee or something like that? You guys always sponsor?
Yeah, we do Buy Me a Coffee.
You can always... Yeah, there you go. I don't know much about it, but you can send funds, I'm sure, there, and she can.
It's very similar to Patreon.
Or we could start a GoFundMe for Caroline and Joe and be like, GoFundMe Utopias bottles, and then if you guys want to help out, you know where to find them.
All right. Well, so speaking of Buy Me a Coffee, we're gonna go to the commercial portion of this episode, and then we'll be right back. Hey everyone, Joe Ludwig here with the one and only Caroline.
Hey!
Before we get to the main topic of today's episode, we wanted to pause briefly and tell you about how you can support the show.
So if you enjoy listening to the podcast and reading our blog posts every week, then you now have the opportunity to support the show through Buy Me a Coffee. Here's what you need to know. It's super easy to do. You don't have to set up an account to contribute. You have options. Send us a one-time donation or sign up as a member to contribute on a monthly or yearly basis. Plus, you can unlock exclusive content.
To learn more about how you can support the Craft Parenting Podcast through Buy Me a Coffee, click the link in the show notes. And now, back to the show. We do appreciate our coffee, though. So if you do want to buy us a coffee, make sure you go do that. It doesn't even have to be coffee or for coffee.
Tea.
It could be for tea. It could be for
mostly beer. Mostly beer.
Mostly beer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, Actually, speaking of coffee beer, I actually got one. Well, I got all these cans and bottles down in my basement. I got a Cato in front of me right now, which is a coffee blonde ale from Sonder, which they use script coffee in that beer, which is one of my favorite beers. So if you've ever had it, you can get it at a local Croaker, or you can go to their tap room and get it. Well, I don't know if it's in the tap room anymore right now. It's one of those beers that come and go and come and go. But you guys, I just figured that was a good insert for a good coffee beer is Cato. If you've ever had it by Sonder,
I don't think
one of the best.
I don't think I've had that
Oh,
one.
dude,
I've at least had a
it
sampler
is.
of it because I try to sample all the big staples whenever I go to a brewery.
It is probably the best coffee beer that I've had throughout Cincinnati. The only other one that's maybe comparable, which is a different style, would probably be Mad Tree when they did the deep. I think it was like Deeper Roots. They did like a collaboration with like three different like local coffee shops for a beer. I forget what it was actually called, but that was pretty decent too.
That was a good one. We got the mixed pack of that one.
Yes, that was pretty good. They also did it for the Dark Charge Day this year. They had a coffee pack, which I think I talked about last time, where they came with like three different coffees from those three local coffee places, and they had three different beers to go along with them. So it was like the bottle bombers themselves, the bourbon barrel bottles that they did with the coffee as all one package. It was like pretty hefty price. It was like not hefty. It was like $60 or something, but it was pretty cool because you got all the ground coffee on top of all three bottles of the beer that they collaborated with. I thought that was really cool. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
So this next segment is all about what we are drinking. I have a beer in front of me. It is a Guinness. It's not very opening.
all right,
It's not very opening day, but I'm still in St.
you're just.
I'm in St. Patrick's
Oh,
Day
sorry.
mode still. So
I was just about to say you're just making up for St. Patrick's Day. That's why.
Yep.
but
Um,
it's really good. So
Oh, nice. It's
Guinness
always a
is
classic. I don't
Guinness
think
is
I've
a
had one in
Guinness. I
while.
think everyone knows what it is. It's in
Oh,
a
Joe,
can.
what is a Guinness? I've never had one.
Yeah, it's in a can and has this little widget. They call it in the can that
The widget's pretty fun.
it releases the
Is it an
nitro.
Ireland beer? Is it made in Ireland? I don't know. I don't know where it's made. I'm assuming it's made in Ireland.
It says brewed in
Do you want
Dublin.
me? I'm drinking a beer myself too.
Yeah,
I
go
didn't have a
ahead.
beer last time I talked to you guys. So
Yeah.
so this time I myself am drinking. I decided to do something small. I guess it's the closest to an opening day beer because I feel like opening day beers are either like an IPA or a lager type thing. Well, I am drinking Little King's cream ale because I got a whole bunch of these Little Kings that I got since they re-released it. I don't know the whole backstory. I didn't write anything down, but I do know that Little Kings kind of went away there for a little while. But it was a Cincinnati staple. It's been around for a very long time, and they come in those super cool green 7 full ounce bottles with making it 5.5%, which you could never tell that was that much alcohol content or ABV in that, to be honest, because it just tastes like a regular cream ale. But those little things, drink a whole bunch of those, you don't even know you're getting messed up on them. I'm sure. They're super good though. I love Little Kings. It's a because they actually are one of those people that did shout me or reached out to me on Instagram since I'm speaking of it and sent me some really cool merchandise. Well, they didn't send it to me. Somebody delivered it to my house, and it was like a little care package. It had like t-shirt, hat, had 6-pack. I think it's 6-pack of Little Kings and some stickers to go on my beer fridge. I know Gnarly Gnome got one too. A couple influencers in the craft beer community on Instagram throughout the Cincinnati area I know had received them. It was kind of like one of those like, oh, hey, we see that you love craft beer in our town or city, and we're just going to send you a little care package. And they got it all together. And then when they came to, well, somebody came, this representative came to my doorstep of Little Kings and like all this like Cincinnati gear and gave it to me. I was really pleased and very happy, and I will always support Little Kings. I even brought some for Christmas this year for my mom, and my dad doesn't really drink too much craft beer, but I was like, hey, you need to try this because you don't like a lot of those crazy like either stouts, IPAs, or anything. He was like, oh, I really like it. And even my brother-in-law, who barely drinks craft beer either, he's not a big IPA guy. He's more of that garage beer type guy from Braxton. I was like, dude, you got to try this, and he loved it too. So there's my little sponsors for Little Kings.
Yeah,
it
it's
is a
it's
staple in our family traditions.
it is our Christmas beer. We used to get a pack 24 pack. They come in 24 packs.
We would get like 2 or 3 24 packs.
Yeah, because they're so small instead of the.
Oh, so small. Yeah.
Instead of a 12 pack, you typically buy it.
It's so small, but so worth it. I think it's like 12 pack, 6 pack, and 24 pack. I think they all come in. So Christmas beers, man.
Yeah. They're not Christmas beers. They're cream ales, like you said. Yeah. But we drink them during Christmas. Yeah.
It is our Christmas tradition.
Yes, because I mentioned that. Let's transition into what is today. It's Reds opening day. Yay. Biggest, I don't know how long this has been going on. I haven't been living in Cincinnati as much as most people have around here. So it's been a long tradition to have opening day, which is obviously all the MLB teams start playing, which is the Major League Baseball. If you're not familiar, if you don't follow baseball, I've only been following baseball myself, I want to say 10 years now. Before I met my wife, I met a buddy of mine. Or didn't meet a buddy of mine who loves Cincinnati Reds, would go to the games all the time. I used to live in Indiana. I don't know if I told you that, Joe, but when I lived in Indiana,
I don't think I realized that.
Yes, well, I know, yeah, because that was one of the reasons why I contacted you not too long, actually yesterday, because I just changed my Indiana number to a 513 number because real quick, they're getting rid of 513 if you don't already have one by the end of April, because there's too many people have 513 area code around here, hence why we have a group called 513 Craft Brew.
Are you going to create
Cincinnati area code.
Are you going to create a second group when the new area code launches?
Somebody asked me that the other time. No, we are not going to create it. Actually, 2 people made a joke like, oh, so is this group going to change to 238, or I think it's 238 or 283. I'm like, no, we're going to keep it the same old 513, because the thing is 513 is not going away for those who currently already have it, though. So it's not like, oh, for those people who still have it, they're getting rid of it. So, but no, my wife was like, hey, here's your chance. And I should have done it when we moved here around, I think it was 2018 we got married. So around 2018-19 is when we moved here. But going, like I said, into all that, I was a Reds fan before I came there. And of course, Indiana doesn't have a professional MLB team. They only have, it's like some team like Dragons or something, but it's like it's a minor league team, or like that's what they call them, or in the A's. But I mean, that was a fun thing to go to. But Reds was the closest place, and Reds is, I think, one of the oldest, maybe if not first baseball teams ever created.
It's the oldest. That's why they're opening day, because they are the first professional baseball team.
They're the first ones paid to play baseball. Yes.
Just like Cincinnati had the first paid fire department.
Yep.
Because Cincinnati is first on things that are important. Everything else we're 10 years behind.
Well, that should be a fun fact. Like, you guys should have like a little thing for that each time. It's like ding, 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 or some kind of like intro, like fun fact of this podcast. You should start doing that, Caroline. Mm-hmm. You have like cool fun facts. I feel like
I am full of them because of Mom Life.
You know what? Full of knowledge, or it's a TikTok generation / Instagram generation. Man, you guys, I don't know how old you guys are. I mean, I'm 39, but I just remember like getting a map out. I'm not like super old school, but remember getting MapQuest and all that stuff just to get directions to go to that concert. And you're like trying to drive down the road, and you're like, oh man, and like you don't know if you took the right exit or not. It says go to this exit, this exit, this exit. I mean, I don't know what I would do without GPS today. Like, it's like, where's everything else at,
Yeah, so, I remember MapQuest.
Well, yeah, so we went to, there was a time that we went to Gatlinburg, and I had the road atlas, and I had the MapQuest for how to get to...
The AAA map tech, right?
The triptychs we used when we went down to Florida.
The triptych.
But no, I just had... Maybe we did have a triptych for that trip too. But I had our printed directions of how to get to the condo. And fortunately, I also had a road atlas because we made a wrong turn somewhere trying to get to the condo. So I had to figure out where we were on my road atlas to then figure out, okay, here we are on the road atlas and here's where the condo is. How do we get from A to B? Which I'm sure if you handed to most 20-year-olds these days, they would be completely lost.
Yeah, probably 30-year-olds too.
Oh yeah, they'd be like, what is this? I don't understand what this is. I mean, I know I would, or maybe even when my daughter does get older, she'll be like, huh, what's that? Because it's just funny, because even now, she doesn't have a cell phone or anything. She's only 1 year old. Sometimes she sees us on her cell phone, sometimes I kind of feel bad. I'm like, oh yeah, and she grabs it and she like wants to look at it. But you know, we play the occasional here and there videos. We're not trying to be that generation where you start like I don't know, looking at an iPad and so much time here and there, and like, oh, this is what you. I mean, we probably will do that for her eventually whenever she gets a cell phone. The thing she's doing really cute now, though, is if my cell phone drops or something, she'll pick it back up and give it back to me, which I think is really cute. Of course, she's not talking yet, but
That only lasts for so long before they just run away with it.
Steal it.
Oh, I'm sure. I've seen some pretty funty. I like to get on Instagram a lot and look at those baby videos because that's what my wife and I do now anymore is on Instagram. I mean, we'll do our own thing, but then she'll like send me a video and private message like, look at this one. And one actually came up the other day where this little girl takes the video and she's like running around. She goes, you can hear the mom in the background. She's like, I don't know. I'm just gonna say her name's Stephanie because I don't remember her name. And she's like, Stephanie. She's like, she's like, do you have the phone? No, and she starts going, and starts running around. Come back here now, and she like starts hiding and stuff. It's actually a really cute video. I'm sure you've seen plenty of those videos at your point in time. So
yeah, that.
But getting on back on track of Reds. Sorry, I know I'm getting so sidetracked. This is what I do, but unfortunately the Reds lost today. I was hoping they would have pulled through. I was watching the game mostly throughout the day, but it was so nice outside. We took my daughter to the park, and then we came back, and my wife and I hung out with her a little bit because her bedtime's usually like 6-ish around there and stuff. But we finished the tail end of the game. I'm like, oh, come on, guys, you guys can pull this through. And of course, everybody's like, oh, this is how Reds are. They'll let you down and stuff. You haven't lived here long enough. I always hear that, but I'm an optimistic person, so I'm always rooting for those wins.
Baseball is such a long season too. It's not like football.
Oh, it is.
So if you lose one, it's not a big deal. You know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They always say one out of, I don't forget, I should know this too by now, like 150 games or something like that. I don't know how many games they play, but
that's a lot.
It's a lot of games. But I will say this year, I mean, speaking of MLB, and since we're on the topic of opening day, this year, well, it's good for, I guess, the catchers. I guess they added a new rule this year where the pitchers are now timed. So instead of waiting for the pitcher to look to the right, left, whatever, they're looking at each base instead of procrastinating time. It puts the pitcher under pressure a little bit, but the pitcher is now on it like, hey, you have to get this ball off by this certain time. They just added it this year, and so everybody's talking about how it's going to make the games go a little bit faster. But the unfortunate event is when you want to go get those cool new foods that Cincinnati Reds always release. I don't know if you saw the menu. There was a lot of cool ones. The one that stuck out to me were some Skyline nachos, I believe, is what they had on there. And I was like, ooh, that sounds great. Skyline chili and nachos.
What are your thoughts on Skyline?
Oh, Skyline is a Cincinnati staple. For those who don't know much about Cincinnati, or say you're a person who is not from Cincinnati, listen to this podcast right now. If you come to Cincinnati, make sure you try Skyline chili. There's also Gold Star. Yes, they're very similar. And yes, some people might think it's weird to put cinnamon in chili, but trust me, it is thebomb.com.
So you are pro Cincinnati chili.
Oh, definitely. I've always been. There's always that topic of people going like, oh, I don't know about this. I mean, I myself listened to a comedy station out of California, and they were talking about it like, oh, I don't see why Cincinnati people love this chili. It's so gross, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, these people don't know what this really is, because most people think chili might be a hearty, thicker chili, or like meat and stuff, which is good chili too, don't get me wrong. But it's a Greek-style chili, so.
Now, Joe is egging on some other Cincinnati area craft beer podcasters that do not appreciate Skyline chili.
Yes, it's always a debate. Who are these other people? I'll be on board with you, Joe. I'll start the fight. I'll start the movement. Skyline chili movement.
They'll be nameless in this episode at least.
You know who you are.
Yes, but it's always interesting to hear perspective from out of towners.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or transplants.
Transplants, yes.
Yeah.
Transplants is the better.
I've even lived in. Oh, go ahead. You said transplants. You were going on about something. I apologize.
No, just making sure that Joe is using the proper terminology.
Well, you mentioned you're from Indiana. Where in Indiana?
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah, where in Indiana? Was it like on the border?
It was really borderline. So I lived in a place called Richmond, Indiana. It's probably, a lot of people do know where it's at. Actually, when I talk to people around here a lot, they're like, oh, I know Richmond, Indiana.
Yeah, I used to take horseback riding lessons there.
Yep.
So it's not like Indianapolis or,
No, I mean, I lived I lived about an hour, maybe an hour and a half from Indianapolis. Pretty much how I did And when I lived in Cincinnati, when I lived in Richmond, Indiana, it was almost the same kind of thing for Cincinnati too, because it's like that south north type thing. So you either go to Annapolis or you go to Cincinnati, but Indianapolis is always the thing. But then, of course, living in Indiana, I really didn't know much about Skyline until there's a town called Eaton, Ohio. It's very, very close to Richmond, Indiana, where they had a skyline there, and then Richmond, Indiana had a skyline for a hot moment, but Richmond, Indiana was notorious for bringing in some things, and then they go out of business or they fizzle out. People don't understand it. And I remember they had Skyline there for a hot minute, and I was like, oh yeah. But then where I really had to get Skyline chili when I lived in Richmond was Oxford, Ohio. And that was even closer. But when I met my wife, I grew up or not grew up. So I grew up in Richmond, sorry, Indiana. But then I met my wife, and then we lived in Liberty, Indiana, which was 20 minutes from Richmond-ish, 25 minutes. And so that was even closer because we lived, I want to say 15 minutes, if that, to Oxford, Ohio. And so we always would get Skyline Oxford when we lived in Liberty, Indiana, because that was the closest place to get that. And then, of course, now there's a Skyline right up the street from us, and actually 3 different spots right up the street from us, because I live in Cole right now. So,
okay, interesting.
So, but I also did know, I mean, this is probably a good segue for you, Joe, because don't you have something with Skyline?
Yeah, I was going to, this is all connected because I'm getting a look. This is all connected, and I'm hearing people screaming about Skyline is gross, which it's not. I love Skyline. Skyline was the high school hangout. I was in marching band, so we went to football games.
Nerd.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, Caroline, if you didn't, I was going to say nerd.
I was in the orchestra, so I was a dork. It's fine.
We went to football games, high school football games on Friday night, and afterwards we would go to Skyline. That was the staple. And early in my career, I used to work downtown, and part of that perk, downtown Cincinnati, and part of the perk was they paid. It was really nice. They paid for my parking. So I had a parking pass in the Great American Building.
Oh, that's great. So
I could use it. So this was early in my career. So this is like 2013, 2014. We just, Caroline, me, we weren't, I don't think we were engaged, or maybe we were. I guess we were engaged. I guess we weren't married. We were engaged though. But we decided to get season tickets to the Reds, just the weekend passes. So it was like 2 out of the 3 weekends or whatever days of the weekend when they were in town. Okay. So it was intense, but it wasn't like every weekend. But it was intense. Like we had to make up the days. Yeah, but we could just go downtown. I mean, we saved probably $20 a trip, right? Because
at a minimum.
Yeah, you go to Great American. You try to park at Great American, and during a Reds game, that's $20 at least. It's probably more than
if you don't want to walk. And I'll be honest, there were some places, I don't know if it's still there because it's been a while since I've been to a Reds game recently, but the buddy which going back in that story, I'm not trying to interact with your story, like overlap your story. Basically, I got to be a Reds fan when I started going with my buddy who lives in Indiana. We started going to games together, and there was a parking place. I don't know if it's still there, but if you go to the very back edge side, I believe kind of by the Banks area, I don't know, it's hard to explain, where the Bengals stadium is. Mm-hmm. And there's like that one main road. I don't know the name of the road. There's like a little like sawmill, whatever it is. They had parking back there for $5. I kid you not, like $5 or $10. It was probably it was probably $5. And they had little tickets they put there, like, oh yeah, you park. I mean, you had to walk at least probably, I would say, 2 miles at that to where you're at to the stadium. But I'm okay with walking I was always okay with walking because I got my exercise in and it wasn't that far away. I could see the stadium for where, we were walking by, and like we weren't going to get a ticket. And then you start getting up to those high price areas, like you said, like $10, $20. You're like, oh my God. I mean, maybe if I was with my, wife and kids, stuff like that. Yeah, we would do that. But like I never had a problem walking because it's always, especially during red season, because it's like super nice outside. Like how we had a lovely day today would have been a great day to do one of those. So I don't know if it's still there. I forget the name of the place, but there was a little area back there where it's like $5 or $10 or something like that, to park there. It's really kind of cool when they did it. But I mean, it might be more now, so I don't know. I haven't been over in a while. So
Yeah, well, we still had to walk, but not 2 miles. We parked at the Great American Building, so it was right across the street from.
So you're paying premium.
Yeah, so we got that parking for free. So the three of us, Caroline and then one of my friends, we got the season tickets, and then we would go to Skyline, which is right there across the street from the Great American Building, to eat dinner.
Perfect.
We would hang out at the Christian Moorlane Lager House.
I was just about to say that has to be right across there.
Yeah, so that's where we would pregame versus, buying the $12 Bud Lights or whatever. We would pregame at the Christian Moorlane House because we have Hogshead memberships, which it's the
bigger mug for the same price.
It's the 21 ounce for the 16
That sounds really
ounce.
cool.
I don't think they do
It's
it
like a
anymore.
mug club?
I'm not sure if they do either. I got conflicting reports the last time I was at the Lager House. They're like, well, we'll honor this because we're slowly phasing it out.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know if it was that or a different card and she mixed them up. But we use those Hogshead mugs so much.
Yeah, especially...
So if let us know.
Well, I don't think you can get them. I think they honor the cards.
Yeah, it was like...
Gotcha.
We got those because we did a very, very early days brewery tour of the Bachfest Hall.
The tap room.
It was the tap room
Christian
before,
Moorlane
while they were still building up the tap room. And when they had just started, they were about to can the first batch of beer brewed, or like one of the first 10 batches of beer brewed at Bachfest Hall in years. And we got a tour from Greg, and he handed us all Hogshead cards.
Yeah.
And we're like, sweet, cool. This is the thing. And then we used the crap out of them.
We did, especially during the rain delays.
Oh yeah, the rain delays. It's just like, oh yeah, we'll just go across the street, we'll drink the beers, and then we'll come back, or we'll just.
So was it free beer for you guys, or did you have to pay for the beer?
No, you still have to pay for the beer. It's just you get like an extra 5 ounces or something like that.
You get like an extra, yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's like a mug club, but we didn't have to pay to get into the mug club. Greg handed us the cards for free.
And then I know later we could have gotten Hogshead memberships or Hogshead Club cards by doing, when it was the Christian Moorline Beer Series, all 3 events in the Christian Moorline Beer Series. But now that has been replaced with the TQL Beer Series. So that is no longer a thing. They still do the Hogshead, or the brew hog. It's a brew hog, right?
Okay.
It's brew hog, yeah.
Yeah, where if you do all 3 races, you're a brew hog. But they don't, and they'll do like a party somewhere. But the Hogshead Club cards are gone now.
Yeah. So as far as
really cool.
Yeah, as far as memories go, I remember marching in the parade as a marching band person. We did that one year. That was fun. This parade, Zach, I'm not sure if you've been. It's like the longest parade ever. It's literally like.
Well, is it the Reds opening day parade? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the Reds opening day parade. I've
been once with my wife. When we were dating, we went to it. She took me, and I actually was trying to get tickets this year to go, just because Taft's was doing something on their Instagram saying, "Oh, hey, if you like this, we'll give you front tickets to our right here." I guess on their steps in front of Taft's. Mm-hmm. We didn't win, but it probably would have been too chaotic. I've seen pictures from today, and I'm like, oh my god, that's super chaotic. I mean, I don't care about that. It's more about my wife, and of course, my kiddo would not be able to probably stand that at that point in time. So we're maybe thinking next year, maybe doing that kind of thing. Hopefully.
I couldn't imagine taking a 1-year-old down there, but
oh yeah,
I couldn't imagine taking a 3-year-old down there, to be honest.
Dude, believe it or not, people take their 1-year-olds to stuff. I mean, we went to Dave & Buster's. My wife and I had a date night, and it was like, I kid you not, I think we were there till like 1 o'clock when they closed. We saw babies that were still new infants, like in their carriage as mom and dad and whoever else in the family were playing around them video games. I'm like, oh, are you serious right now? You got these kids out? this late? Like, whoa. You never know about this stuff until you're an actual parent. And then you're like, oh man, Olivia would not like that. That's my daughter's name. But I was like, oh, she would not last that long.
I'm sure they would love it, but I'm sure they would want to march along with the parade. That's
right.
the thing.
And that's the thing. I do want to go back to the parade though. Like the first time I went, I did enjoy it. Everybody's super kind there. The memory that I have from that parade was just like there were people doing like so many tailgates, and like of course I'm like, oh, I don't have anything to kind of give, but these people are like, oh, you can have a hot dog. I have this brat. You're cool. Let's be a part of this. Rooting for the home team type situation. I'm like, okay, I'll take a brat, a hamburger, hot dog here, hanging out with these people in the parking lot as the parade goes by. So I mean. I'm sure you have a lot more, your memories are probably a lot more like cooler than what I went through because you were in a band, you were actually in the parade. So, I mean,
I was in the parade 1 year. But yeah, as a kid, it's a local holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Going to Reds games, if you I played baseball up until 6th grade. So all through T-ball, up until 6th grade. We would go to baseball games as a team, to watch the professionals, to get inspiration or whatever.
That's awesome.
So that was like a team building thing that we did. I don't think we ever went to the parade, but
it's chaos as we just described.
A ton of people skip school though.
Oh, and a bunch of people skip work too.
I was just about to say people are asking off. So
we had like 3 or 4 people that came to work
mm-hmm.
and then left at 10 a.m. And so he's like, why is everybody leaving at 10? And I'm like, oh, because they're going to go downtown for the Reds game. They wanted to get like that 3 or 4 hours of work in. So they only had to take a half day instead of a whole day. And they're like, bye, I'm going downtown.
Yeah, it's like it should be a local holiday where people just have the day off, right?
Yeah.
Because people take it off anyway. Working downtown for 4 years, you don't get anything done. Like it's... I worked at the PNC Center, which is at the end of the parade. So the parade just marched right on through. It's just nonstop noise for 3 hours. And the atmosphere is awesome. I never went as a kid downtown to see the parade. I wasn't one of those kids who got to get,
signed out of school
or whatever. But as an adult, we went a couple times. We went with Brian and Graham. I think we did like a kegs and eggs thing.
We did do a kegs and eggs thing.
Cool.
We saw the Bob and Tom show live recording. And
nice.
then we went and hung out downtown.
With Bob and Tom.
Yeah, with Bob and Tom. That was like right after Bob retired, but he was still coming back to do the live shows. Because he did not do the live show this year. Usually he comes back for opening day. So the Bob and Tom show is still a thing, but Bob retired. Tom keeps having children, so I don't think he's allowed to retire because he has to make money to.
He had another child. I know he had.
I think his youngest is like maybe 7 years old, but it's also been a hot second since I've really listened to the Bob and Tom show. Maybe his youngest is like 10 by now. But way younger than he has any business.
I have not listened to Bob and Tom show in a while. The last time I listened to Bob and Tom actually wasn't too long ago. I went to Land of Illusion with my wife as a date night not too long last year. This is I'm getting to the point where Bob and Tom weren't there, but it's a haunted attraction thing if people don't know Land of Illusion. It's in Middletown. But anyway, some people from the radio station that Bob and Tom are on, which I think is WTV, which is 104.7, whatever, they were giving out like CDs, and like it was an old Bob and Tom CD. I listened to it, and to be honest, I liked some of the skits, but it's not as funny as I remember as a kid in high school. I was like, oh, Bob and Tom's so funny. I actually listen to Kid Chris in the morning now, which is locally here on WBN in the morning. That's what I listen to myself, and I always liked him and Allie Martin, which are kind of some local Cincinnati people too. I think she worked for like one of the local TV stations around here. Now she's on the Kid Chris show, which is a comedy station too as well. And they just kind of like do sports updates and have people call in, that kind of thing. I don't know if you ever heard of the Kid Chris show, which I'm sure you have. If you haven't, you should check it out. It's early morning, but that's the stuff that I listen to now. So, but yeah, going back to your experiences, I will say, Joe, that's really cool that you were able to get those free passes to park, because I myself have parked down there once before getting lunch when I used to work closer into the downtown area, not super close. I worked for like some kind of property management place, and I remember I literally parked in front of an area just to grab food in and out for 5 minutes. Of course, yes, it said don't park here. And I thought, I get a ticket from one of the cops. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And it was a ticket for just even 5 minutes. So any kind of parking for free downtown, I'm sure anybody would be jealous of her, because like parking is like outrageous downtown. And if you don't work for a business downtown, I'm sure like it's like, oh my God, I'm coming here to visit Cincinnati for the day, but where do I park at? Because that's Cincinnati's bread and butter, is all that parking down there. You got to figure out where you're parking at. You got to feed the meter.
Yeah, so while
you know how that goes.
while I enjoyed Joe's parking pass, I was very grateful that I did not have to commute downtown 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Because that is the real joy of working downtown.
Oh, yeah.
I would get updates from Joe, and I was like, sweet, have fun with that one, hun. Love you.
I don't know.
And then of course opening days and all kinds of whatever they were having. I'm sure you got stuck in traffic down there. That would have had to suck. Or when a president was coming through or something.
Yeah. There was one time the basketball team was coming through. It was LeBron James. Did he play for
Cleveland?
He played for
Cleveland.
Did he play for Indianapolis? I thought it was.
No, he never played for any. I'm not a huge LeBron James. To be honest, I'm not a huge basketball fan. You think I would be, but I'm mainly
There was a
football and
basketball
baseball.
team that came in. Just I don't know. So yeah, that was shut
LeBron
down.
James played.
I think it was.
As far as
I
I know-
think he was there. I don't remember. We saw
You know, it
we
would
saw
make
the.
sense.
It was like a scrimmage. I think they were playing at one of the stadiums. I don't know. And then the president, he would come in, from
Sure.
Lincoln or whatever. But that wouldn't really affect me because where we lived on the west side, I could just take side roads and then the viaduct over the Western Hills Viaduct or whatever.
Okay.
And I could just cut up without going on the highway. Usually when the president comes in, they shut down the highway, but I could just go on the road, the side roads.
You're like, I know the back way.
Yeah. And then there was Oktoberfest too, which
Oh yeah. Oktoberfest is
at the time it was on 5th Street when I worked downtown. So they since moved it to 3rd Street, but I used to work at the PNC Center, which is off of 5th Street. Am I saying that right? 5th Street?
Yes.
Okay. It's been a while. I generally don't go downtown anymore, but so yeah. My building was right on 5th Street, where Oktoberfest used to be. So
don't tell me you tried to sneak down there during the lunch break. You're like, I'll be going to somewhere to eat something. I'll be back.
That was before they had Oktoberfest on Fridays. That was when Oktoberfest was only Saturday and Sunday. So you could drive into town.
They had activities for the businesses though. They had the wiener dog races. They had at lunchtime on the Fountain Square. They had office wheelchair races, like office chair.
That sounds fun.
Like you had to take your colleague or whatever and wheel them with in their computer chair or whatever. They had all these different games and stuff between lunch hour or whatever to kind of get people ready. I thought it was set up for Friday. It didn't start until 6 though. Like they wouldn't sell beer.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
They didn't sell beer or anything like that.
Because now they start at like noon.
Yeah. So getting back on track, we're gonna.
I was going to say, speaking of beer.
Yeah, we're gonna sidetrack to our favorite baseball beers, and
yes,
I have some notes, but Zach, you can go ahead and start. I'm sure we have similar notes.
I'm not going to be. Yeah, I think you did have a couple similar notes. I think the one we had a similar one on. Actually, 3 of them I saw that you wrote down. Some of them I didn't know about. That you wrote down. I had to go back to it, but I guess you could say I narrowed it down to top 3 because I'm trying to remember what beers that are like big Cincinnati like Reds or baseball themed. The one that comes to mind, very first one, is going to be Hustle from Rheingeist. It's always been a favorite of mine. But here's a fun fact: is actually I think the recipe has changed. This is its third time changing. It hasn't changed in a while, but it
It's
used to be a
changed at
red
least
ale.
once, yeah.
Yeah, it
I
was a red
remember
ale
that. That was a good
originally.
one. The original
It
one
was
was
not too
good.
bad, but I like the one they have now, which is an IPA. It's something about I don't know. I've written down like in my Untapped like notes about it. I always write like each year when I write down in my Untapped app about which is if you're not familiar, it's just like a way to rate your beers. But I go through it and I'm like it has piney like grassy notes because they it says on the thing itself there's like a whole spiel that Ryan Guys always writes on their side of their can. And one of the things that I like is it does have like certain notes. I think it's like I want to say like I don't want to say orange, limes, or not lime, lemony. It's like mango and hoppy flavor. It's just basically it kind of makes you think of like not saying I would eat grass, but it's like that fresh smell of grass, like a baseball game, that kind of thing. And it just that was always a favorite as far as Ryan Guys goes. So I like the IPA better than I did the red
Well,
ale.
I have the description. So it says,
Oh, go ahead, tell them the description.
off at the crack of the bat, spikes dug in, exploding with speed. Hustle breaks the game wide open. This Indian Pale Ale takes a hard, hoppy cut at a soft, fluffy, hanging curve, driving notes of peach, tangerine, and citrus. Back, 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 gone.
Okay, so citrus. Okay, I was getting the citrus and the peachy. So that peachy citrusy you kind of get out of it if you keep on drinking it more. But it's just like refreshing. It's like this spring is coming around. And that's when baseball starts. So it's like that. It's like hey, spring's coming around. Here's that beer. Love it. That's why it's always been my top favorite. A lot of people might argue because of course some people like Rhine Guys. Most people do, but there's a lot of people that are also unfortunately haters of Rhine Guys. But it's just always been one of my top. If I had top 10 Rhinegeist, the Hustle would be in there. Um,
All right. So
and
you
then,
mentioned a top 10. So what are your top 10 Rheingeister beers?
well, actually, to be honest, I only have a top three for you. I'm sorry, Joe. Because I was trying to research more. I should have top 10,
All
but
right.
as
All
of
right.
right
That
now,
was a trick question. All right.
okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, I just remember what you were saying. You're saying top 10 Rhinegeist. You're not saying top 10 like baseball themed one. I just thought that through now. You're trying to trick me.
Yeah, you
Um,
said top 10
uh,
Rheingeister. So I was asking you what your
You know
top.
what? I'll get that list for you next podcast. I'll give that to you, the top 10 that I can think of that I like. The this man, I can't believe I fell for that. Let's see here. Rounding Third by Mad Tree is probably my second. It was also one of those classic ones. I think actually Mad Tree changed their recipe this year. I haven't tried the new one this year. I was reading it. I think it's caramel in there. They said caramely notes and something else. I just looked it up earlier. Here
I
it is,
have,
Rounding Third.
yeah, I have the
Oh, you got the whole
description.
description?
I
The new
do.
one? Go ahead and tell
Yeah.
them.
Brewed to celebrate the start of our favorite pastime, Rounding Third has a slight caramel, semi-sweet malt backbone balanced by a strong hop profile. Dry hopped with Falconer's Flight and Simcoe. It will have your palate rounding third and heading for home.
Okay. So I've had different variations of it, but I've not had the caramel one. So and I usually get like things in single cans. I don't usually buy a six pack. So I always like to try something new. But I get it. I need to grab this year's. But the last time I had one, um, well, I mean, this is the first time I tagged it in, should I say, is when I lived in Indiana, and this is when it was a red Indian IPA. So this also was a red ale, almost to IPA, when I had the Mad Tree rounding third, and it came in the old logo with the tree. I mean, they had so many different logo changes. Well, I don't say so many, but a couple different logo changes, and I just remember that being one of the ones. It's like, oh man, I always have to go to that, and then my last one or my third one, I put Rally Cap Sonder just because it was also one of those classic lagers. Do you have a description of Sonder Rally Cap as well?
I do.
Go ahead and tell them what that is.
A German Pilsner that is crisp and clean with a decent hop backing, perfect for a summer night of baseball, swimming, or sitting by the campfire.
There you go. And see, that was more of your typical lager. See, I'm not. A lot of people are like, I just like beer or lagers, which I like too. Don't get me wrong, but it's never really. I'm never huge. That's not my first go-to. When I go to a brewery, it's usually IPA stouts or something like free, like a Berliner Weiss. Like I know it sounds not super non-traditional of a beer, but that's usually what I go towards. But the Valley Cap would probably be that one. I don't. Is it listed as a lager or a German Pilsner?
It's a Pilsner. Yeah.
Okay, so Pilsner. So Pilsners and lagers to me kind of have that same similar like taste. There's some
I
people
think
might argue on
I
that,
think
but
a Pilsner is technically a lager. Is that right,
okay,
Karen?
so basically they're in the same family and
It
stuff.
can be a lager. The lager
Okay.
versus ale, it depends on the yeast that you use.
Okay, so
So you
that might
can
be the
you can
technicalities.
yeah, so that's like getting into the nitty-gritty. So you can brew
Gotcha.
a Pilsner with an ale yeast and call it a Pilsner.
Oh, sounds like something.
So yeah,
Sounds like
so
something gnarly gnome would try to go into. Who'd be like, okay, it's technically this,
well,
or something like Julia, or they would say on their podcast, The Truth Beer, they'd be like, well, technically.
yeah. So a Pilsner in Germany, I think it would be a lager.
Yeah, so the Pilsner, if it falls under a Czech Pilsner, it would be a lager.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you would lager it, but with technology, you can use an ale yeast and you can formulate it so it's similar to the traditional German lager.
The taste profile that you're looking for.
The taste profile can be. So I think Sam Adams tried this, like he's experimenting with the different. They did the half ale, half lager, and they did different things and
So I
experimented
like
with
Sam
it.
Adams. They're very experimental, especially the one around here.
Yeah,
And then,
I didn't put that in there, but Sam Adams had the Cincinnati 513 beer.
That was a good one.
When we did the kegs and
I don't think
eggs.
I've never had it.
It had just come out when we did Kegs and Eggs.
This was like 2017, 2016.
Yeah, they've had that name before.
I'm really terrible with years.
It was still when I was working downtown. I think it was 2017. So when they just released it. I don't know that it's still around. I think Sam Adams is having some growing pains. I don't know what's going on, but
Yeah, it came out April of 2017. You got it right.
yep. And I think it came.
Oh,
I think
there
it.
it is.
I think it came out on opening day, actually.
Yeah.
And that was the beer to get, right? It was the Sam Adams 513. I don't know if was that the one where they did the half lager, half ale, and they combined it, and it was like revolutionary. I don't know. Someone will correct me, I'm sure. But
You'll have some people emailing you.
But
By
yeah,
the way.
so that's an honorable mention. Sam Adams 513. I don't know if they still make it,
Okay,
but
I need to try it. I've never had it.
It was really good.
I'm not sure if they do either, but
And
I'll have to look it up here.
on my list was pretty much identical to yours, but I had one additional one in addition to the 513.
Okay.
I had the West Side.
West Side,
Oh, yeah, West Side.
Yeah, the West Side Pilsner, which is very similar to the Sonder Rally Cap. It's the same style. But the one thing I did want to say about the Sonder is it's really good in the slow pour. So,
Ooh, nice. I've never had a slow pour. Everybody's talked about it before.
It's
I mean, not
real
everybody, but
tasty.
I've heard some people.
yeah, it's really good. I
definitely
think
need to try
higher
these slow pours.
higher gravity has it.
yeah. No, so
Did it?
BC's Bottle Lodge used
BC's
it.
Bottle Lodge in Montgomery had one because that's where I had it.
I
Yeah.
heard about that.
I
heard
I
they
think
did have
I
one.
think does high gravity have a slow
High
pour?
Green has one, and that might be what you're thinking of. High Green has a slow pour.
Okay.
High grain for sure.
I like
does.
high grade.
Yeah.
I don't.
Or no, wait, have I been to high grade?
Marco
I've
doesn't
been to
talk
High Grade.
about slow pours
You haven't
on the
been to high
podcast
grain.
as
You keep
much.
commenting that you haven't. You need to go there.
Yes, I do need to go high grade, but see, I get it mixed up with this beer I'm getting ready to tell you now, which is Grainworks. I've been to Grainworks and I enjoy their stuff, and I figured that's a good introduction to, like, I haven't had this beer yet, but supposedly Grainworks has a new beer this year. I think it's new for this year. It's for Red's opening day. It's called Batflit Brew. It's also a German lager, and has a picture of this guy, like it looks like a baseball player dropping a baseball bat on the front color. It's all red. But what they said is starting opening day, you can grab a can of Bat Flip Brew exclusively at Great American Ballpark. So I guess this beer is something they had collaborated with, I guess, Red Stadium or something to only sell it there. I'm sure they probably have it on. They have to have it on tap at their brewery themselves. If they don't, maybe it's just like one of those, like you can only get it at the Great American Ballpark. But it sounds like it'd be pretty cool. I'd love to try their beer this year called Bat Flip Brew. So
I haven't heard about that one.
it popped up in my, again, Instagram. So yeah, I think Tom posted it in our 513 group, and that's how I first found out about it. It was just a couple days ago because they posted that 4 days ago. So this will be starting up today and throughout opening or baseball season. You'll be able to get this Grainworks Bat Flip Brew, and I'm sure you can get it at all the little the areas that have that serve beer. I'm assuming. I don't think they actually have a brewer. Some beer places have an actual like or you can only buy Grainworks at this area.
Well, I
it's all
think
Grainworks, that kind of thing.
Sorry. I'm not sure though, because usually the stadium they've got like 4 different beers that you can find most places, and then everything else you can only find at like 2 or 3 places. So I'll be interested to see what the stadium layout is this year when we go in. What's that, like a week and a half?
Yeah, we're supposed to go.
It's something like that. Oh, you guys are going. Sounds super cool. I'd love to do that myself. So
yeah, we're going to a Reds game.
We still have to secure childcare.
Still have to see.
Oh yes, that's always the thing, is you can't take your kids yet, but yeah, I'm definitely, like I said, opening day, super excited. Obviously, I'm not going to watch every single game, but I'm going to try to watch as many games as I can. But my wife doesn't watch sports as much as I do. I mean, she likes going to the games. She thinks it's fun here and there, but she's not like she'd probably go to the game, but she's not like how I am, like with football and baseball. I'm really into it, but I have to also say, oh yeah, I have a little one running around too who doesn't watch it. She did, actually. It was pretty cute. She did watch a little of the game with me for like 5 minutes, if that. Today we were looking at the screen, but then of course she wanted to walk around and stuff too. So I can't wait till the day comes when she does get older and I can take her to a game, and we'll be like, y'all as a family, me, my wife, and her, and maybe just her and I, or me and my dad and her. It's gonna be fun when that happens. So.
Mm-hmm.
There's something to be said about, just hanging out on a summer day, listening to a Reds game, on the radio too. I know
Nostalgic.
I know you said the TV, but my favorite is watching it or listening to it on the radio. Maybe in the pool.
Oh, yeah. Wait, you have a pool?
Well, no, I don't have a pool. No. I have
man, Joe.
I have friends.
You got to invite me to your pool.
Yeah, I have friends who have a pool, and
so you have rich friends that have pools.
No, I wouldn't call them rich necessarily, but we would hang out there, and then we would, hang out at Phillips Swim Club and Price Hill.
That's super cool.
And they would.
That's the things I love to hear about.
And they
Nostalgia.
would have the radio on with the Reds game when the Reds games were on.
What radio station is it on? I never thought. I was actually trying to listen myself today.
700 WLW.
Yep,
I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Is that like 7? What is it on AM? So it's like 700. Is that like a point something 700?
No,
it's AM. It's just straight 700. It is the
yeah.
voice of
Cincinnati. No, I don't know.
No, so it's one of the strongest radio signals it's allowed to have in the United States, because you can get 700 WLW in like Florida. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, Caroline's grandpa used to live in West Palm Beach.
That's super cool.
And he would listen.
He would listen.
I wonder what the radius is.
And I think he would listen to it on his drives to and from Florida when he was crazy did that all by himself.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. See, like I would listen to it on the radio. I listen to more stuff on the TV, or I watch more stuff on TV, but with the Valley Sports and stuff, I wish baseball was more on local TV, like on Fox 19. I feel like that used to be a thing. Like it was more on like local places, like back in the day. I'm not that old, but I feel like it was like more on local stuff. But now it's like the only time you can watch stuff locally is if it's like the World Series or something like that. So, or on local channels, what I'm saying. So
Everybody got their own network.
yep, everyone has their own network. Everyone has their own streaming service. I mean, hell, MGM or whatever it is has a streaming service now. That's that movie company. I'm like, wait, I saw this the other day. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, I like the movies. I like James Bond. Like,
I think
but
Amazon
you're
bought
now.
them.
Oh, they must have or something. I don't know, man. But yeah, baseball. That's super cool though. Like, Joe, I like to hear about your old stories and maybe stuff that you remember as you were a kid. Because I didn't grow up in that. That when I was a kid, it was like just basically a lot of movies, Ninja Turtles, all that stuff. I didn't really even watch sports until later in the years. If you guys don't know me, or most of my friends know me as a Packers fan. We lived in Wisconsin. I was became a Packers fan. But actually, believe it or not, when I was born, my dad lived or grew up in Dayton, Ohio area. And so he was a Cincinnati Bengals fan for the longest time. I mean, we still are kind of like, it's like one of those like, oh, it's like a secondary team and we still root for them. Obviously, if they go to the Super Bowl, but when I was born in baby clothes, it was Bengal clothes because my dad was making them as back when I was young, and I didn't watch games because my dad used to record football games on VHS tapes. If you had parents that did that before and go back and watch those games, that kind of thing. I remember my dad would watch them, the old recorded games on VHS. I mean, that was the time I wasn't watching football. But then I started gradually getting into it, collecting the football cards, and I started liking the teams a lot. And now I'm a huge Packers fan to this day, and of course the Bengals fan living in Cincinnati too. They've leaked over into my blood too. So.
Doc, you wanted to break some news, so we have some breaking news. I don't have a sound. I don't have a sound effect for that. But you mentioned.
I love.
You
I
mentioned
make my own sound effects.
the sound effect.
Oh
yeah.
wait.
So you mentioned your Facebook group 513 Craft Brew. Did I say
This
that
is
right?
correct.
Yes.
Yep. You mentioned creating relationships with different
Sure.
local breweries and in the local craft beer community. But you had some news regarding a local craft beer collab that you're doing.
Ah, yes. I wanted to make it exclusively to you guys because I've not really talked much about it except for within the group. More details will come along later down the road. So if you join our group 513 Craft Brew, you search it in the search tab, or Joe will put it in the notes here in the podcast, or Caroline, they're both part of the group. Anyway, we are doing a collaboration with the local brewing company called Third Eye Brewing Company, which I'm super pumped about, which is Kelly's brewery. Tom Argo and Kelly, the two head brewers over there. If you're not familiar with them, they're super cool guys. Kelly was head brewer / owner at Brink at one point. Then
He
got
still co-owns
transitioned
Brink.
Yes, that's true. I did actually ask him about that too when we had the meeting for this collaboration. I was like, "Hey, do you still have anything to Brink?" He goes, "Yeah, I think his brother-in-law is now the owner or was the head guy of it. Like
Yes.
his family's somehow entitled or not entitled. Sorry, they have something to do with it. His family he's still within the family business. He just doesn't have that. He's not there like he used to be type situation. He's all like mainly Third Eye and stuff, which." In my opinion, he's like wherever he's touched his foot, which she's only two places that I know because I don't know Kelly like that, like from way back in the day. But I think he said he told me he started at like doing homebrew stuff all the way getting into going to Brink and then of course doing now Third Eye. But any beer that he touches is phenomenal.
It's really
I just
good.
want to keep giving it. It's oh my God, Kelly! Shout out to Kelly. He makes the best beer. Like I've not had a bad beer from Third Eye. I'm just being honest. There's one I was like, I don't like the style as much, but as far as everything, collaborations, whatever, I just love it. So when that place opened up, it's one of the actually few places. My wife doesn't do craft beer much, but it's one of the few places my wife has actually visited with me. So she's been there more with me than anything. But that's a different note. So we're doing a collaboration with Third Eye Brewing. It's going to be a stout. It was me, Elijah, and Blake Longfellow, who are also part of the group, which and then Tom, I wanted him to come, but he couldn't come. But those are my main people who are within the group who are always consistently looking who wants to add to the group, commenting, whatever. So I wanted them to be a part of that process. There's going to be a couple other people that I'm inviting that are part of the group that are really super close notch friends. I'm not going to name their names or anything. You'll probably see pictures from when we do Brew Day. But when we do the Brew Day coming up, I don't even know what it is. Like I said, you'll have pictures later. But basically, what this beer is going to be is it's going to be a bourbon barrel stout. Go figure. Zach loves bourbon barrel styles because Haley's like, well, what do you want to? What kind of style do you want? Of course, I was like, oh, I love my bourbon barrel stouts. So it's going to be a bourbon barrel stout. Originally, I wanted to put maple in it and just blueberries, but then it sounds like a very sweet beer, but I feel like it's going to be super good because again, Tom and Kelly are going to be doing it. It's going to have blueberries, maple, and then vanilla. Elijah wanted the vanilla added to it. He's like, okay, how about we put vanilla too? I was like, oh, how many things is it going to have? I swear it's only going to have four is it adjuncts? Is that right? I don't know if I'm saying that right. But okay, so it's going to, and Tom's like, well, if you're going to have blueberry, maple, and vanilla, you might as well put marshmallow in it too. So we're going to have those four things in it: blueberry, marshmallow, maple, and vanilla are all somehow going to, hopefully the taste club goes well with the vanilla and marshmallow. I'm hoping those don't offset each other. But because I always love breakfast stouts. They're probably one of my top favorite stouts. And then of course you put the bourbon breakfast stouts. Oh my God, it's to die for. So we're going to be doing the bottles. I believe it's an 18-month process. So when we start it, I think they're going to start it somewhere in April, I believe. And so what they're going to be doing is they'll have it, and it probably, like I said, it probably won't be available till next year. But I asked Kelly more details about it because it's my first time collaborating with him, and he was like, "Yeah, it's going to be mainly sold within your group and only to you guys." Just because I was thinking that he was going to put it out in the public, but I think it's going to be kind of like how Urban Artifacts does their small batch series type thing. It's just going to be like a small batch thing, and since it does cost a little money here and there for them to do this beer, they're going to like keep it to the group, and people can buy it within the group. So you guys will be able to get your hands on it. And he asked what size bottle I wanted to put in, and I think it'll be one of the first bottles. He gave me a couple of suggestions, and I think I chose that I was going to probably put it, I want to say probably a 12-ounce bottle, maybe a 16-ounce bottle if that. Probably 12. The only reason I wanted to do a smaller bottle of it is not only is it going to be a small batch, but I also wanted it to be inexpensive because the more bottle volume you get, it's going to be a lot more expensive. So I wanted people to be able to say, hey, this is my first time trying it, but like it again, maybe they'll do another collaboration and then we'll make it in a bigger bottle. I don't know what the price is going to be on it or anything yet. We haven't talked about that. Right now we just talked about what kind of style it's going to be, what the name of it's going to be, and then I don't have a date for when it's going to be released, but when it does get released, we will be sure to tell all of you guys within the group of the 513 Craft Beer Group on when you can get it and when you can buy it and stuff. And so anybody in that group can get it. If you're not in the group, it will not be available to anybody outside the group unless somebody has a bottle and they're sharing it with somebody, or they just say, hey, I'm going to give it your bottle or sell it, which I don't care if they do that kind of thing. So, and I believe it might be on tap as well. I think he said there might be a few, like maybe 1 keg, 2 keg type situation, and of course all that stuff will be dropping. And we were trying to come up with like different names for it. There was a lot of names thrown out there. I was the one more trying to write down notes on my iPhone. I was originally wanting to put something with 513, and I'm glad you said something about that earlier, but Kelly was like, well, Sam Adams apparently owns the 513 name around here, so anything it's with 513, I guess it's copyrighted, to believe it or not, so any of the breweries within the Cincinnati area cannot use the 513, because I wanted to do something with our name in the group, but he told me that probably won't, he could check into it, but I wanted to be on the safe side. So what the name is of right now, again, exclusively, I came up with the name Meanwhile in Sharonville is what I came up with. I came up with one other name that had something to do with like virtual, like digital something, because it all has to do with being on social media. I think it was like social media, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, you know what? This seems like one of those, like, comic book TV show type things, like, meanwhile, this is happening in here. And I thought that was a really cool thing, is they didn't really have a lot of names with Sharonville in their name since they are in Sharonville. So I was like, hey, let's do this. And Elijah loved it. Elijah Moreland was like, that's perfect. Let's do that. So it's going to be called Meanwhile in Sharonville. And it's kind of like, what's going on? What's going on behind the scenes? There's something's brewing up, or something's stirring amongst something in Sharonville. It's kind of like, again, going back to like that comic booky type, like TV show, like, dun, 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 what's going on? If you're into that kind of entertainment stuff. So it's very exciting that we're going to be doing it. I'm pretty pumped about it. So I wanted to make sure I announced it on your guys, because I haven't talked about it to anybody else. I mentioned it to a few people, mentioned it to Gnarly Gnome, People who like hang out with me on a regular basis. I've mentioned it to them and people in the group. People were just like, "Oh, I thought it was kind of like something that you're talking about," but we actually had a meeting about it for about a month or two ago, and it's going to be happening. So I'm super excited about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
we're excited too.
that sounds really
Yes.
good. I'm excited to taste it, and you'll let
Oh
us
yeah.
know if you have pictures when you brew it.
Oh, I'll have pictures. Yeah, it's going to be strictly to the group because I don't want a lot of stuff being out. Like if you're not in the group, it's not going to be available like pictures I mean, we'll have videos, pictures, but I don't want it being like regular stuff like, oh, this is what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, hey, let's just kind of keep this to the group. It's kind of like one of like everybody who's in the group will know about information more and more coming. It's not going to be blasted across anything. I mean, I might say something on my Instagram about it, my craft beer Instagram, but that's about it. So, um,
Okay.
yeah, it's going to be super fun. And then, other than that, I know that we're kind of going over time, so I did want to shout out we were always talking about podcasts. I mean, I don't want to interrupt you, Joe. I know I've been talking this whole time.
No, go
Was there
ahead.
anything else you wanted to talk to? Because there's two shout outs I want to give. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything else on top of what I was saying. Or...
No, I was gonna ask you if you wanted to shout anything out before we close up.
Yes. So I want to give a big shout out to Blake, who's in our group. It's called Blake, the Brewery Explorer. He has started a new podcast. He only has two episodes. One's like only like 5 minutes, and it was kind of more of an introduction episode. And then he has another. He has a second episode that's been posted. I know you guys unfortunately don't do Spotify. I know you guys talked about that last thing.
It showed up on my podcatcher.
Sweet.
Okay, well, so I think he is. Well, because the guy, his name is Noah Jones, is kind of like his co-host slash I feel like his second wingman. It's both Blake Longfellow is the main person who's doing it. It's him, but this guy who's also in our group, he's super cool. I met him at Dark Charge Day. His name's Noah Jones, is also doing it. And there's one other guy. I'm so sorry that I forget his name because Blake is like, don't forget the other dude, and I just totally accidentally forgot his name. But he's a part of it too. But mainly, I think Noah's ahead of like getting everything posted out there and posted to other feeds and stuff, like as far as Spotify and iTunes and all that stuff. So that's one I definitely want to give a shout out to. Blake he just started it, so I'm hoping that takes off. I'm hoping to maybe be a guest on his show. The second episode, he actually interviewed the head brewer or one of the head brewers of Battery. So I'm not quite sure the guy's name, but it was a fun listen. It was like 30 minutes long. They're still kind of just starting, so he's kind of getting his feet wet. So they got a couple here and there things. Probably get intros later down the road, whatever. And then there's a second podcast. My good friends Ron, Missy, and Ariana all have this podcast called Miss Behavior, and that's MIS, and that's BER. Havior is HAVIOR. It's all one word, and they actually just got some professional microphones not too long ago. They kind of started out. They did this really. It was kind of like I don't know, like their humor is very. I would say their humor is kind of a perverted type humor, which is weird. I mean, it's more like adult. So this podcast is definitely for those people who don't mind, like I guess you could say South Park humor. It's not like totally along the lines of that, but it's definitely not a family friendly type podcast, if that makes sense, even though I don't think any kids really listen to podcasts right now. But it's a little bit more mature. It's a parental advisory type, in my opinion, as far as podcasts go, but they also discuss a lot of beer, and they're getting very big and awesome in what they do. I actually just guest starred on one of their episodes because I asked them to bring their equipment when we had a birthday get together in February where they put their microphone. They do videos as well along with recording, but they have a setup, and what they do is basically each week they're three friends. Ron's been my friend for a long time. He actually used to live in Eaton, Ohio, and I met him and we worked at a place in Indiana together. It was like a super entertainment store, so I've known Ron for a long time, but he's finally doing this podcast thing with him, and so Missy edits it and puts it all together, and she's really good at doing that and getting it out there. But what they end up doing is each week, I think every Tuesday or Wednesday, I think it's every Monday or Tuesday, they meet up, and whoever's hosting that week has to buy 3 beers. They buy 2 beers. They usually go to the bottle shop over in Dayton, Ohio, because they live really close by, because they live in like Pickaway area. My best buddy does. And they live super close to Dayton. It's the Barrel House, if you've never heard of it. It's an awesome place to get singles. And so they go there. and they grab a couple beers, they just off the shelves, and then they have one mystery beer is what they call it. And so they start off with the two, and then they have like a cover over it, because if you watch the video on YouTube, they had one stuff for YouTube too. They uncover it at the end, and then they talk about the beers. But also, what I was trying to say is they have a lot of sexual jokes and stuff too, and that's just their humor. But they have a lot of interesting conversations too, because they also, well, Ron has a daughter who's like a teenager now, and then Missy also has two kids, so they kind of talk about their families sometimes. And Missy drives for Uber on top of her other job too, or something. It's like Uber. It's one of those things. And so they usually like to talk about their interesting stories that they have within their life and their family, perverted jokes, but they throw a lot of the craft beer stuff, and they actually do a lot of cool stuff because they do some history behind beers too, so those are my two shout outs. I mean,
awesome.
Again, I'm sorry for going too much over and stuff like that, but I just wanted to make sure they get the recognition. I've still been trying to get Julia and Marco to get to interview. Well, since it's now theirs is everywhere, so it's not just Spotify. Theirs is on every I don't know what the channels are for podcasting, but they're definitely on there. I don't know if they want to check them out, because like I said, it's very adult in certain situations. Some people are like, oh, I can't believe they're talking about that, but that's just their humor. But they do a lot of good craft beer stuff, talking about it and stuff too. So
Okay.
but yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the shout outs and stuff. Again, sorry for those who are listening. I'm glad that you listened all the way up to this point, because we had a lot of great discussions.
Yeah. Well, Zach, I appreciate you coming on second time.
I enjoyed being on your show, guys.
So that does it for this week's show. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and we are at Craft Parenting Podcast on all those platforms. You can get a hold of us via email, which is craftparentingpodcast@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. Make sure to share the show. It's what helps our show grow.
And all of the information that you need about our show is on our website, www.craftparentingpodcast.com.
That's where we post the show notes and maybe blog posts again eventually. We'll see. We shall see.
Yeah, one day, maybe, when things calm down. Things never calm down.
Next week will be, you just gotta get through this week, and then next week will be better. That's the lie that you tell yourself
as a parent
every week.
Everything is unpredictable. But Zach, thank you so much for being on the show. We
so
appreciate it. Tell us again where people can find you.
Yes.
And about your Facebook group.
Yep, it's Facebook 513 Craft Brew, and that's 513 CRAFT space brewed, BREW. And then you also can find me on Instagram at 513 Craft Brew Cincy. That's all one word, 513 Craft Brew Cincy. And then you can add me up on there. All the information for the group and everything will be on my Instagram and mainly on Facebook. I'm on there more than anything. So
awesome. I'm at Craft Parenting Joe on Instagram.
I am at Caroline Creates Crafts on Instagram.
And with that, we'll see you next time on the Craft Parenting Podcast.
Bye.